Good evening, folks. Well, today it's going to be about Canada. About what did Canada play, what Canada's role was during not only during the Revolutionary War, but also what was Canada's role during, about how Canada pretty much got its name. About a later role, I'll talk about Canada later on, but right now we gotta talk about Canada for certain things. About what Canada's role was during the French for how it got began. Well, of course, New France was part of Canada, about how Canada pretty much was ruled by Great Britain for a long time. It was under British rule, kind of like how we were. For so many years, it was under British rule for so many years. It seemed like the British were going to own Canada. It was pretty much an owned piece of land, kind of like how we were, for years and years and years. Then New France came around, which states that were in New France were Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Central, Eastern North Dakota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Western Tennessee, Southwest to West Alabama, far northeastern Texas, eastern Kansas, and far northeastern Oklahoma. Now, that's pretty much how that was all written down for New France. Now, you all know how that worked. New France was pretty much all written down under one line. Pretty much all written down flat in stones. The French owned that part. The French settlers pretty much owned all of that right there. And the French owned part of Canada as well. They settled in the Quebec region. Very strongly in Quebec. But where did Canada... But then the British wanted, who owned part of the United States, pretty much where the 13 colonies are, which is where the 13 stripes are, which is part of where our war began. Now, the main question is, then the 50 stars represents the 50 states, and that's pretty much what our flag represents. But, with that being said, with the states that were in New France, then you got part of Quebec region. Now we go to Canada. Quebec, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and I can't remember what the other one is. I don't remember the other one, but there's like 4 other provinces that are like submerged into the state of the United States that were part of the New France. Then it's just kind of weird how that works. Then you look at other parts of Canada. Quebec region mainly. Because in Quebec, the British owned it for parts of it. The British still owned it. They expelled the French during the 7 Years' War, aka the French and Indian War. So many wars. The French, who also fought them years earlier during the 100 Years' War, was quite a significant thing. But the thing about that war and this war was different. The 7 Years' War was fought here, not only in the United States, but over in Europe. But the thing about this one is different. New France, which was part of like what France was supposed to be, they wanted to have that. And then when France pretty much overran its own course, then in 1810, right before the war took place right before the... We'll talk about that momentarily. But it took a good while to get things going. But when that war broke out, they pretty much expelled the French from the United States. The French went back into Canada. And they expelled the French pretty much from all of Canada, except for a very small portion, but they pretty much did leave them out of Canada. Some French were still left in Canada. They were pretty much left in the small part called Upper Canada, aka Quebec, and the lower part of Canada, also part of Quebec. Now, when that part came around, then when War of 1812 came around, Great Britain had a huge advantage, because they owned Canada. All they had to do was send troops down through Canada and the United States. That's all they had to do. We got our independence from them. All they had to do was send troops down through. Plain and simple. War. Then shortly after the war, before the War of 1812, we had the Louisiana Purchase. From 1801 to 1803. Louisiana Purchase, we had Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, large portions of South Dakota, large portions of North Dakota, East Central Colorado, large portions of Montana, large portions of Wyoming, excuse me, I can't talk. The northeast portion of New Mexico, the northeast portions of Texas, and portions of Louisiana. That's pretty much how it got its name, the Louisiana Purchase. It's because of Louisiana. And King Louis XIV, who pretty much helped the United States send troops over to help the United States beat the British during that time frame. But then the United States signed a deal with Napoleon in 1803. He signed with the French, handing it to the United States. The United States now owned that land. They owned all those states. So pretty much the United States now owned it. Now, not with all those states. But then Mexico happened. Mexico owned parts of Texas, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, southern Wyoming, west central, southern Colorado, southwest corner of Kansas, and the Oklahoma Panhandle. That's what they owned. They owned all those states. Right before it all broke, they owned all those part of the states. They owned all that. Mexico wanted its independence from Spain. And they did, just like how the Netherlands wanted their independence from Spain, and they did it. Both those countries got their independence from the Spanish. And that's how it happened. They fought tooth to tooth, and they got their independence from them. And that's how they became Mexico, because Mexico is now a country. So now with all those states now in Mexico, a war is going to be breaking out soon. Then in 1836, Texas fought for its independence. And sure enough, they become a republic. They're not quite a state yet. But they secede from the Mexico Union. Kind of like the Civil War almost, but not exactly. They secede from the Union, the Mexico Union. We're going to do the Mexican secession. They secede from the Mexico Union. We're talking about Mexico first. They secede from the Union. Then we got so many other states that will secede from the Union shortly. But it has to take time to do that. It's not an easy one. It didn't take long, but it was a very hard fought one. But we'll get to that one a little later. Right now we gotta go back to the War of 1812, and we'll get back to that one tomorrow. And with that being said, I have to go because I got some things I have to do. With that being said, peace.